and welcome to Courtgames, a Legend of the Five Rings podcast funded by the Legend of the Five Rings Discord community Patreon.
This podcast will focus on the role-playing game stories and lore for Legend of the Five Rings.
I'm Korva.
And I'm Kikita Kaori. Good morning.
Good morning. What we are going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at the second part of Yogo's Curse, which is the new fiction from Josiah Duke Harris and Katrina Ostrander. But first we're going to have to look at some news.
There's just a little bit of news over this period. The FFG Forums are closing on January 31st, 2021. So you need to get everything off the forums by then. Now, we're looking to, we have the Courtgames website at courtgamespod.com open, and it has its own forums that people are welcome to use. We'll be working on it to try and improve it over the break and continue to improve it. It also has an area where you can submit any kind of content for the website. So if you have long-term pieces that you are hosting, like on Google Drive or other places where it's convenient for you and you want to add links to it or add them as areas to share, you can submit that as content on courtgamespod.com for the whole community to share.
It's nice that we're getting a warning this time because AEG shut down their L5R forums with absolutely no warning back in the day. And I'll admit to still being slightly salty about that because I had stuff on there that I would have liked to have kept. But it's kind of a pity, actually, because although people are moving a lot of stuff to like Discord, for example, and in our case and other places like that, that does mean that there isn't really a central place for people to go and have these discussions in a way that can be searched and, referred back to, which is kind of a shame. But maybe courtgamespod.com can become that for people with that.
There's also different clan community forums that are still out there. Not so many as there used to be, but homeofthecrane.com, which is the Crane website, has been going for nigh onto, I don't know, it was up in 1996 or so when I started. So under various, ownerships and various, they've reformatted the sites and, different people are hosting it and that sort of thing over the years, but it's kind of been a continuous specific presence since then. So that's still open. It hasn't been used for a while as people are moving to Facebook and Discord, but we'll be ramping that up too. That's a goal. For all things Crane, anyway.
I think this is actually a problem that is going to cause future internet archaeologists a lot of problem because a lot of these conversations are going to be real time and on Discord and all that kind of stuff and will get lost, which I think is a great shame. But never mind.
Anyway.
Things are going.
Yeah, that's the way things are going. So rest your stuff and, we'll try and have a better focus for Courtgames Pod to share that with the community as well. Also, The Careful Gardener came out, which is another fiction, but we will talk about that next episode.
Meanwhile, we're talking about The Yogo's Curse Part 2 by Josiah Duke Harris and Katrina Ostrander. We pick up where Yogo's Curse Part 1 left off, where Yogo Junzo is trying to figure out who Lady Atsuko is, deciding that she is an enemy and probably a Maho Tsukai, possibly literally a blood speaker. He plans to trap her in his audience hall and question her. Meanwhile, the hapless Yogo Jiro delivers Atsuko to the keep, then meets his betrothed outside. That's Yogo Kasume. Kasume reveals that she knows that Jiro sent his best friend Hideo to die in his place on his wedding day to Kasume, which is how he managed to get into a relationship with her in the first place. Atsuko reveals that she is not, in fact, a Maho Tsukai. She's, in fact, a horrible centipede demon. Violence erupts, And unfortunately, at that very moment, the wards on the cursed Imperial sword Kunshu rebel, which weakens everything so much that a coordinated attack from the outside by Shadowlands forces on the Castle of Learning begins in earnest. So Yogo Junzo, Kasume, Seppo Maseo, and a lot of other people are killed fighting Atsuko. Jiro flees, and he's just trying to save his own skin and save his own reputation. He's taking the letters that Kasume found that reveals that he betrayed his friend, which means that when people who are grabbing artifacts out of the Castle Learning and getting them out of there, they think, oh, he's got important documents. He must be one of the people who's taking important things out of the castle. Here, you take this stuff as well, including this slightly ominous-looking scroll that's all in a black scroll case and possibly has some dramatic music playing at all times when it's on screen. Here, you take that, get on this horse, you head to the capital. And so he does. So not entirely sure what happens at the castle, but it's not good. But unfortunately, when he stops for a rest, the ghosts of Hideo and Kasume are waiting for him.
So, yes, poor Jiro.
Well,
that's what
a lot of this is his own fault.
It's his own fault. But everyone calls him poor Jiro, including the ghosts at the end.
That's true. Poor Jiro.
So there are...
Best day, no.
No, not the best day for Rokugan. There are some lore nuggets in there. There isn't as many as the previous fiction, though, which was just ridiculously packed. But let's see. Various things we find. We find a cool secret chest that Yogo Junzo is looking in for his secret notes, and it's got locks and panels and secret poison needles and enchantments of preservation. So if you ever feel like you need to pull out your Dungeons and Dragons, lockpick challenge poison chest thing, it's here. You can have it. It's okay. There's no rules against it.
That's true. We have mention of Fukuroku Jin, who is the keeper of knowledge and is one of the great fortunes. So Yogo Junzo gives a quick prayer of help. Please help me. Please help me find what I need. Indeed, yeah. Didn't help. Yeah, it didn't work, unfortunately.
No, he didn't need knowledge. Let's see. It mentions the Mask of Ichiban. And so we've seen this before. So the Mask of Ichiban, there were 4 masks that secured the tomb of Ichiban. Ichiban being the leader of the Blood Speakers who almost took over Rokugan by raising an army of the dead. Okay, like huge big bad from Rokugani history. He was sealed in a tomb, and the seals of the tomb were put behind 4 masks. And if the 4 masks are put together on the tomb, theoretically, Ichiban could be released. That's kind of the gist of that story, right?
Yeah, I always wonder why they build these super prisons for these horribly evil beasties that they never, ever, ever want to get out again. And then they make a way of getting them out. That seems suboptimal.
Right. So in the story, we see Yogo Junzo's thoughts. His father, he thinks that maybe there is a mask of Ichiban that was rumored to be in Shinoma Forest's shadowed swamps. And his father believed that there was a path to Jikoku there too. Well, we read a lot more about that in the Crab novella, Trail of Shadows. So we do find out, spoilers involved. There is, in fact, a Mask of Ichiban in there. So, why didn't the silly scorpion bother to tell the crab about that, being as the Shinoma Forest is right in there?
Because they're the clan of secrets, not the clan of telling people things. That literally does seem to be why. They also possibly don't have a very good opinion of the Cooney Witch Hunters or the Asako Inquisitors, which is yet another problem that I think is this is the era of interesting things happening, not the era of everyone's doing the right thing and nothing's going wrong. So this is where a lot of the clans kind of their downsides and their blind spots are coming back to bite them all at once. So that's kind of why, so this is the Scorpion thing of we should keep these secrets. And the Yogo thing of you have to keep everything tightly constrained and compartmentalized because you never know who will betray you, because we have a curse that will make us betray you when we don't want to. And so there are times when things will go wrong because somebody should have been told something, but it was kept hidden because of that kind of way of thinking. So yeah, that's why. That's what it comes down to.
Makes sense, I guess. But it messes him up big time here. Junzo thinks that Atsuko might be one of Ichiban's cult of blood speakers. And so he gets this feeling like maybe Atsuko thought he would let his guard down and fall prey to the same lure of hidden knowledge that his father fell to. His father fell to the prey to the lure of hidden knowledge. And he thinks maybe Atsuko was coming because she thought she would tempt him with the lure of hidden knowledge. But of course, what does he do? He lets her into the castle in order to trap her so he could question her instead of shooting her with about 10,000 arrows from the door, because he could totally do that.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, he didn't know. He thought she was just a Mahotsukai as opposed to a horrible demon. He was not expecting a horrible demon. But even so, no, you're quite right. He's kind of, mahaha, I will not fall prey to the same temptation. But he, in fact, is doing exactly that. Yeah, it's so true.
If he didn't want to know what she had to say, he could have abducted her outside or had her killed for passing the blocks on the trade routes or anything else. But nah, gotta ask that questions.
Yeah, he could just, there's a whole bunch of things. I mean, I suspect there's a certain amount of the audience room is, from the sounds of things, one of the best guarded places in the palace. So he probably thought, no, everything's fine. And he may have actually have been correct if he didn't have a horribly cursed Hante sword mucking things up. Mm-hmm. And weakening all the boundaries, because essentially, I mean, this is slightly, a lot of the power in the castle of the castle of learning is now taken up with defending against Kunshu, as opposed to scorpion demons centipede demons who might have just strolled in. So yeah, but yeah, he was still completely overconfident. But oh well, never mind. Atsuko herself. Atsuko is a genuine name, which is nice. There are a few possible translations of it. It's very difficult to say, this Japanese name means this, because very often there are about 50 different possible kanji that you can add to that name. So, but it could be like hot lady, maybe, which would be kind of funny. Honest/sincere lady, both of which are kind of hilarious.
Mm-hmm. I love the puns. So Japanese is so good for puns. So
it really is, yeah.
That amused me. The idea that her name means honest or honest lady. Let's see. We have a storytelling monk who is teaching a string of children. So this is very classic kind of image. It is a means of education of Hymen in religion and culture. So children are educated in not just in their craft farming or whatever by their parents. But they are educated in the religion. They are educated in culture, and it is the monks who do a lot of this. And this idea that you would have, in the morning, all the village children get up and go follow the monk around town to go find a nice, cool tree to sit under, or play outside while the monk tells stories or teaches, is kind of how education for non-samurai would happen.
Yep.
So, very typically, So the monk, it tells the story of a child-eating demon who had been taught empathy as a trick by Shinsei, the little teacher, and then reformed and became one of Shinsei's protectors. So he's, the children are learning moral lessons, and they're learning about Shinseism and Shinsei, and also learning about Oni and that they exist, all in this one story.
Yep.
The fact that Atsuko doesn't like it is very funny because, of course, it's like she's a very unreformed demon, so she's not really interested in hearing about Shinsei and reforming demons.
No. A very common thing, if you're going to introduce something like that in your own games, a very common thing for the educating priest to use, or a monk, is to use picture scrolls. And so they would like show the kids pictures of whatever it is they're teaching them about, which can be a fun little visual. Meanwhile, we have Jiro's mother sending Kasame Jiro's things in preparation for their wedding, which ends up revealing to Kasame that Jiro had sent his best friend and Kasame's then betrothed to his death. So that means that his mother ended up betraying Jiro by revealing Jiro's betrayal of Hideo to Kasame.
Yay, Yogo.
Yogo Curse. It's all fun, except all the fact that it's not fun at all.
So, let's see. We have Sapu Maseo. Sapu Maseo was the guard that was sent with Kunshu to take it to the Castle of Learning to be studied. And she's been kind of acting as an advisor during these matters for Yogo Junzo. And she carries a jade Bacento as a mark of her office, which is a heavy saber-like blade on the end of a pole. So she is, as I said, a captain of the Sapun Hidden Guard. And she is also a Shigenja, and she is fighting with this blade. So this idea, there are certainly, and 5th edition is extremely, perhaps too well built for it, idea of weapon-wielding combat Shigenja.
Yeah.
Is definitely a thing. And there's plenty of people who have argued that Shigenja in 5th edition are stronger melee warriors than Bushi. And with the way that the elemental weapons work, that's not necessarily incorrect. And she mentions that all the Sapun guards are attuned to the wards in the Imperial Palace, and that's how they know that if they're broken. So you get attuned to the wards of an area, and then you can know what's happening with them.
which we also get with the Yogo realizing that something has brushed through their wards, but hasn't destroyed them the way an Oni Lord would. So they actually immediately get an idea of what's come through the gates and how at least kind of a range of its power. Mm-hmm. And so you're getting that kind of attunement towards with the Yogo as well. But we also have mention of there's a code phrase that is used, which is Eastern Sunset. And in this particular case, it's a phrase to evacuate the castle basement of its all super secret stuff that really shouldn't end up in the hands of the Shadowlands. Yogo Junzo, unfortunately, is all, meh, we don't need that. Evacuate now in our moment of triumph. Which, unfortunately, he is very, very wrong about.
Yeah.
But we see later that people are evacuating stuff, and we don't know whether that's someone gave the evacuation order despite Yogo Junzo saying no, or if there is a further Eastern Sunset is let's get things out the way before things happen, just in case. And there might be another one, which is something is happening. Let's get the stuff out. Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting question. We don't know the answer. We just see people running around shoving boxes of potentially deadly scrolls in the hands of random people and telling them to get out.
Let's see. The Castle of Learning is attacked from the northeast. Northeast being the unlucky direction mentioned in the previous fic, and from the southwest, which is the direction of the Shadowlands. So, like I said last time, I'm kind of curious as to all right, in real life, Japan, northeast is an unlucky direction, per feng shui and everything. It's just the unlucky direction. But there's no reason that we know of that it would be the unlucky direction.
Yes, it's not like there's a specific thing. Yeah.
Right. However, in Rokugan, there's a really, really strong reason why southwest would be an unlucky direction. So why in Rokugan would you have an unlucky direction to the northeast as well? Like, what is that? So I still find that curious.
Well, it may be that northeast is just generally unlucky for the same reason that northeast is unlucky for us in Japanese feng shui. It's just that also there's a bad place to the southwest, and that's a separate thing. That is not a general feng shui thing. That's where the Shadowlands is. So it's a different it's a different type of unlucky, maybe.
I figured they had enough unlucky directions anyway.
Well, yeah.
Hell breaking through. Literally in this direction. But that's okay.
We have mention of conch shells being used for warning horns, which was a thing, very much, because if you've got a conch shell, it's already made a nice trumpet shape for you. Just need to put a mouthpiece on it. Good to go. Saves you a lot of work. So they actually were very often used to sound warnings and alarms and things.
Mm-hmm. And then at the very end, when Jiro is dismounting and resting his horse on his way to Otosanuchi, he sees crows throughout his journey. And then at the end, he sees perched on a signpost in the village that he's at another of these big beetles that he saw early in the story. The symbols of crows and beetles are used a lot through this story, to the point where it's not just flavor, it's definitely a symbolic something in the story. It's used where it wouldn't, it's used too often and where it wouldn't need to be, to not have been intentional, if that makes sense. Crows are very often a symbol of bringing news. We've talked about it last time that crows are also the symbol of Shinsei, but more common is this idea in Eastern and Western literature is this idea of crows carrying news, which of course is what Jiro is doing along this thing. He's the messenger of misery. He's bringing news of what happened. The other thing is, and it's clearly within the context of this story, is that beetles are the symbols of evil in this story. We see them popping up all around at Tsuko while she's here. Beetles are often used as kind of a beetles and centipedes. Well, it is a centipede oni, so we already have that. But are used as a symbol of evil in Japan. Here, him showing up here at the end implies that Jiro hasn't left the evil behind him. With Atsuko, the beetles have come along with him. There's a beetle here with him, even though Atsuko is back in the Castle of Learning, which if you if you took that from a story standpoint, that would mean that in some way, Jiro is bringing evil with him.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of ranges from Atsuko is in fact following him. That's one possibility. Because if he's carrying a black scroll, she might be looking for the black scroll. This might literally be Atsuko. It might be the evil that is the black scroll, assuming it is a black scroll. So a more general evil. And it could be that Jiro himself is he's just such a terrible person because of what he's done. That's what the evil is. So there's a lot of possibility.
I guess that's all we have to say about beetles and evil and all our various lore nuggets for this story. It was a good story. I'm really curious as to what's going to happen next.
Well, yes. I mean, we have that flavor text from a relatively recent card about someone riding desperately for the capital, hoping that getting information to the regent will stop horrible evil. But presumably that person doesn't know who the regent is right now because that's changed. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be related to what's happening in this fiction. So,
And then, of course, there is the question of, does Jiro really have a black scroll in his saddlebags? Would somebody hand a black scroll? It looked like it.
Yeah.
Would you really shove a black scroll at somebody you don't know?
Well, they seem to think, oh, you must be the person who's carrying documents. Here you go. There's also, I have to say, a certain amount of, which I can understand, the kind of anywhere right now is better than here. Given the castle is currently infested with demons, anywhere is better than here. Which you can argue for and against, but you can see why someone would think that.
Oh, absolutely.
I have to say, given the very significant look at the scroll, it would be a bit weird if it wasn't, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Now, I listened to the Last Province podcast talking about this story, and they seem to think that Jiro died or didn't, actually make it past the ghosts. But I thought that was just a more flavorful showing up of the ghosts that we've already seen haunt Jiro all the way along the journey.
The ghost of Hideo has been haunting him for quite some time and hasn't killed him. I don't see that they necessarily have killed. I mean, I don't think he's dead at this point, at the literal end of the fiction, and I don't think that they then kill him.
Right.
Myself, but you could read it like that. I suspect this is just these two ghosts are now haunting him together, because together they can do super haunting. Because not only are they going, "Ooh, we are ghosts, and you betrayed us," and you completely failed because we're together again. You didn't end up with Kasame, which is what you wanted. So your betrayal was for nothing, which is even more better a haunting, I think. So I don't see the evidence for it in the fiction, is what I'm saying.
We're having this black scroll, though. If it shows up in Oda Sanuchi's without any explanation, I'm kind of really, really worried it just ends up on Kakita Yoshi's desk and he oh, what's this? And I
wonder
really,
what this is. Yeah.
I really, really hope that was one thing I really thought AEG did well with the stories of the Black Scrolls, is that they were always opened intentionally.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Even though there's 12 of them, every one of them was opened intentionally. It was opened for a reason. We didn't necessarily know in-depth motivations about that reason, but it was for a reason. And I just think that if they make opening the Black Scroll as a accident, oopsie, I think I would hate that.
That could be bad.
I think that would be terrible storytelling. So I'm hoping they don't do it.
Yeah, me too. I do wonder what will happen if someone tries to bring a black scroll into the Imperial Palace. What with all its wards and all that, that should set off some alarms. That could be entertaining in and of itself.
Yeah, I'm fine with it ending up in the wrong person's hands. I'm fine with, like, I just don't want it to be opened up just because somebody mistook it for a regular piece of correspondence or a regular scroll or something. That would just be so anticlimactic, and
it would be. Yeah, no, I quite agree. I agree with that. And what I really like about this fiction, I have to say, is it's really giving the Yogo Curse some proper teeth. Because I think, although you've always been told this is a curse where you will betray the one you love the most at some point in your life. Mm-hmm. It felt kind of like it got downplayed a lot and didn't really feel that bad. I think also the kind of the notion that you could lose it early as a kid kind of made it seem a little less threatening. Mm-hmm. Whereas the betrayals we see here are really significant and they really hurt. Which I think is really, really cool. And it just gives it, like I say, it gives it a real bite to it. I'm not entirely sure how I would want to integrate that into a game if I was a GM and someone wanted to play a Yogo. That seems like it would be kind of tough, because in theory, you should hit them with something pretty vicious.
Well, I think you would definitely want to work with your player to come up. I think for something this significant, I, as a GM, would not feel correct to hit them with this curse. I mean, it's just too.
Yeah, I mean, the player is kind of stating, "I want this to happen because I'm playing this kind of character." But yeah, you really want to hash it out beforehand. Absolutely.
Right, because it says a lot about them. Now, if they say, "I don't care, I'll do anything," surprise me, that's fine. But at least talk with the player, so figure out, do you want it to be a betrayal where you did something before the game starts and it's over with? Do you want to be an active, and it's over with, but maybe you're dealing with the consequences of that betrayal you did before the game starts, which is a perfectly legit way to play Yogo Curse. I mean, you betrayed somebody. That should have consequences. But it means that you're not, a betrayal bomb going off. Yes.
It's not doing a sort of Damocles, but it's still a big thing. I mean, honestly, it's like hand them this fiction if someone wants to play Yogo and go, look at some of these options. Because if you think about it, you go from Yogo Junzo, who his betrayal, which, assuming his betrayal of his father is in fact his Yogo Curse betrayal, painful, but honestly didn't do him any damage. Everyone would have said, "No, you did the right thing," even though he himself is going, "This is a betrayal," and it also affects everything he's done since then, because he's not had kids, he's not had a family because of this betrayal. So that's a way it can affect you. But then you get all the way to Jiro, and he has screwed up his life, the life of his fiancée, and really, really damaged himself and stuff like that. So, yeah.
And then you have, like we said, the betrayal of his mom. All right. So with Jiro's betrayal and Yogo Junzo's betrayal, it was an intentional betrayal.
Yeah.
Yes. One for quote-unquote good, one for quote-unquote selfish reasons. But they were intentional betrayals. I know I am going to betray them when I do this, and I did it anyway. If you take the story of Jiro's mother sending Kasame's Jiro's things, that's an accidental betrayal, but it still, destroys Jiro's future relationship and all kinds of other stuff as well. I mean, it's short-lived only because there was an Oni in the palace, but it would have really messed up her son's life, and he would have hated her forever. And
well, as it stands, she's going to be haunting him forever. So it's maybe not that short-lived. But yes, that was an unintentional one, yeah.
And so that should be something you decide with your players too. Do you want it to be something, a setup where you are intentionally going to be betraying somebody in some way? Do you want to wake up and, find you accidentally betrayed somebody some way? But work it through with your players. Don't just say, oops, you accidentally betrayed somebody. Surprise.
Yeah. And now all of Rocky Island's on fire and it's your fault. Yeah. So there you go. I think those are some options to think through. Yep.
So, good discussion. We did want to make some call-outs to some other things that are out there online. I wanted to give a shout-out to a monster manual for L5R5E that is by Reuven, who's also known as Harzerkatze. I found this on the FFG Forums, though since those are going away, I will be hosting them on my website as well. We will provide a link to the original in the show notes, and we'll also try and be getting it onto the Courtgames website, as well as like Winter Garden of the Kikita.
Yeah.
Also, a shout out to a new set of vassal families and minor clans written for L5R5E by Hobgoblyn on the FFG Forums, which are also going to try and get moved to Courtgames Pod, and I'll also try and have a link on my website too. These are very good, both of them. They have plenty of rules, and they have all kinds of great yokai in the monster manual. Many, many vassal families for all of the great clans, which some people like their Rokugans very well loaded with vassal families, and this one does it. Has good ones. And the authors of these are frequently updating them, adding more critters and vassal families. So it's good stuff to look at.
I'd also like to call out to our sister podcasts and our Patreons. So we are part of the Courtgames Network, includes the Legend of the Five Rings LCG podcast, our Live from Tokyo podcast called Tokyo of the Five Rings, and our two actual play podcasts, Crimson Gold Agonies and Fortune and Strife. We would also be remiss if we did not shout out our friends at D20 Radio.
Yes, there's lots of podcasts on D20 Radio for Star Wars, Genesis systems, and all kinds of other role-playing games I don't play, but they do have all kinds of things there for you to look at. I can only handle, my husband's homebrew and Dungeons & Dragons and L5R. That's more than enough games.
D20 Radio has an awful lot of games and systems represented, so that you will find something that you're interested in there. Absolutely.
Our podcast is funded by the L5R Community Discord Patreon. It supports our editing costs as well as our website, which we can use to store, see longer term information, and hopefully, rescue some of the stuff from the other forums. We have summaries of our podcasts. We have our role-playing game tools there, competitions, all kinds of stuff. For our Patreons, we have some special bonus content. We get early access to our AP podcasts, Adventure Seeds, other things as we think of them. But please, if you're listening, you want to be a Patreon and you have good ideas for things that we can offer to our patrons that you would like to see more of, please tell us so we can see what we can do about that.
Online, you can find us at our website, which is courtgamespod.com. On Twitter, we are twitter.com/courtgamespod. And you can find our Patreon at patreon.com/courtgames.
But that's it for us this week. I am Kikita Kaori. May the fortunes favor you.
And I've been Korvar, and until we meet again, keep your jade handy.
Especially if you're anywhere near the Castle of Learning.
It might be too late, but yes.
All right.
correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.